process of promoting client understanding. Client understanding really starts with the development of a strong therapeutic rapport. Remember that relationship is characterized by empathy, unconditional positive regard, genuineness, authenticity, trust, and creating a warm and welcoming environment. Before attempting to promote understanding and really evaluate the underlying problem, helpers need to make sure that we have explored the client's concerns and that we understand those concerns. It would be very difficult for us to promote understanding of something that maybe we don't fully understand. Helpers strive to promote both intellectual and emotional understanding. Intellectual understanding provides an objective explanation for problems. In contrast, emotional understanding connects affect to intellect and creates a sense of personal involvement and responsibility for problems. Rogers contended that insight substantially arises out of being able to accept and express emotions. In the helping process, emotional understanding involves experiencing feelings. It's one thing to know that you are experiencing an emotion, that you're happy, angry, or sad, but it's another thing to feel happy, angry, or sad. In promoting client understanding, we're helping the clients gain insight into what they might not see, which could be the underlying sources of their problems, the relationships or connections between their thoughts, feelings, and emotions, and behaviors, inconsistencies or incongruence in attitudes and behaviors, distorted thinking or inaccurate perceptions, transference or placing feelings onto the person who the feelings really don't belong to, and ineffective attitudes and behaviors. Remember that in the initial sessions, the primary focus is to build a strong therapeutic relationship, a foundation for the working relationship that you and the client are going to have. When we start to look at insight or awareness into the problems, the connections between thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, this is happening later in the therapeutic process. We first need to really focus on understanding the client's problems, their worldview, their culture and background. And the insight comes later, after we have a foundation and after we have a strong working relationship in that therapeutic alliance. One of the common themes in counseling and human service work is increased awareness. One of the areas of awareness that we talk about frequently is emotions or feelings, and how they are connected to our thoughts and our behaviors. Emotion-focused therapy is an approach to therapeutic treatment based on the premise that our emotions are a key to our identity and a guide for individual choice and decision making. This type of therapy assumes that when we lack awareness of our emotions, or if we are avoiding unpleasant emotions, we're unable to use the important information provided by these emotions. Emotion-focused therapy, or EFT, is a humanistic approach, much like person-centered theory, and it's designed to help people become better able to accept, regulate, and understand their emotions. It's empirically based, meaning that it has some research behind it and some proof that it works, and it draws from the principles of cognitive behavioral, person-centered, and Gestalt therapies. EFT also incorporates aspects of Piaget studies on how people solve problems, as well as a system perspective when the approach is directed toward the treatment of a couple. EFT sessions typically center around the development of two key skills, and the first is arriving at one's emotions through increased awareness and acceptance. The second involves learning to transform emotions and better use the information they provide to avoid negative or harmful behaviors or other side effects of certain emotions. Clients may need help seeing the relationships between feelings, thoughts, behaviors, and experiences. Our thoughts are the primary way that we sort information or experiences that happen in our lives. However, we also typically have some type of feeling associated with our thought patterns. We make sense of the world through our thoughts and feelings. And our behaviors are very much influenced by our thoughts and feelings. Through the process of promoting client understanding, we can help clients understand what their feelings, thoughts, and behaviors are, what they mean, and identify how they affect one another. This can produce increased awareness and insight for the client. In promoting client understanding, there are some points to consider. First, what is the client's motivation to develop an understanding of themselves? It is possible for people to make changes in behavior with little understanding. Behavioral theorists assert that understanding is not necessary for behavior change, and in fact, behavior change may lead to understanding. In Rogers' model of helping, insight leads to action, and action leads to further insight. There are multiple views on client awareness and insight and the importance of that in the client's process and change. It's also important to take cultural variables into consideration when thinking about client understanding. In Western culture, it's typical for counselors and clients to want to increase awareness and insight into the thoughts and feelings and behaviors in order to create change. However, this type of exploration into awareness and insight is not valued in all cultures. In some Asian cultures, when they deal with unpleasant emotions, such as anger, anxiety, frustration, they deal with it by not thinking about them and occupying their time and their mind with other activities. The underlying belief is that thinking about these feelings too much may actually cause more problems. We must also consider social class when thinking about cultural variables. This is because clients of lower social class are often concerned with trying to satisfy basic needs in Maslow's hierarchy, and they may see efforts to promote understanding as undesirable. When somebody is really just struggling to get by and struggling to survive, the promotion of understanding may seem abstract and impractical. In these cases, we need to meet clients where they are, and we need to understand the client's needs enough to know that increased awareness and insight and understanding is not what they're striving for, but rather what might be helpful in this case is some information on accessing resources, child support, emergency housing, medical assistance, or other resources. They may truly be striving for information rather than an exploration of insight and awareness. Many of the basic counseling skills help to develop understanding. Asking questions, reflecting implied cognitive content, reflecting feelings, providing feedback to clients, using confrontation when there are inconsistencies or incongruence, providing information, interpreting, which helps to give clients new perspectives. Interpreting can also help clients see patterns and themes that emerge throughout the process. Self-disclosing, which is providing some personal information that is relevant and helpful. If you think about times maybe in a class where an instructor provides some self-disclosure or maybe a personal experience that relates to what you're learning, and it helps you solidify that learning because you have something to relate it to. So self-disclosure can be really powerful when it's used appropriately. But think about other times where maybe you had an instructor or someone else in your life that was guiding you in some way and self-disclosed too much or too often, or that it felt irrelevant to what you were talking about. So we need to be very careful when using self-disclosure. It can be a really powerful tool to help connect and solidify the understanding of information, but it can also really become a barrier to connection if it's used too much or used for the wrong reasons or at the wrong times. Immediacy is a form of self-disclosure because it involves helpers sharing their feelings, thoughts, and reactions of the process. In self-disclosing, the helper is providing some story or example from their life, which typically has happened outside of the counseling session in the past. Immediacy, however, happens in the moment, the here and now. And the helper is often pointing out something that's happening currently, such as feeling happy for the client who just shared some good news, or I'm feeling confused because I can't quite follow your story right now. So you're taking ownership of being part of the therapeutic process, and you're making a statement that is calling attention to what's happening for you in the room right now. As helpers, our increased knowledge and skills of the therapeutic process truly help to increase and promote client understanding.